George pauses briefly and answers, SA2. To his amazement, a third screen suddenly illuminates, displaying a single item menu, SA2. A somewhat amused George manually implements the commands necessary to locate the file and access the document. This must be where Bob Branson, the would-be author, must have stored his rudimentary writing efforts. George thinks. A feeling of mischievous moment in the making. He just had to look. After he entered the final command, the word unavailable appears on the screen. Just like Branson to hide that which might not be the most flattering about him. A great writer of facts, but a neophyte in the world of fiction, George surmises. He had to know more. Maybe it's time for another computer conversation. Computer, George Myers. George Myers acknowledged. Password SA2. Password SA2 acknowledged. Identify the file, cabinet, and drawer. Cabinet 16, drawer 4. George pans the room and locates the file cabinet. Display file content. Information unavailable, the voice sternly answers. George decides to try again. SA2, he repeats. SA2, the voice responds, but with an obviously slower cadence. Assuming that the system malfunction is imminent, George checks all the fail-safe components, the UPS, uninterruptible power supply in particular. Everything checks out okay. SA2, he commands. SA2, the voice replies, not only slower, but more distinct. George the sleuth is now aroused. He has that feeling. Something's going on. SA2, he repeats, and as anticipated, the voice responds in a further modified reply. SA2. In an instant, George's body becomes rigid as he recognizes it. GIDS, GIDS, or Giddy, as he sometimes called it, an acronym for Graduated Interlocking Detection System. He should recognize it. He created it. GIDS is a system that George created to protect his passwords from being used by the unauthorized. Even if the primary and secondary passwords are compromised, a tertiary code protects the most valuable information. The most intimate code is gradually revealed by repeating the secondary code in a call response sequence with the voice-actuated segment of the system. At the conclusion of the predetermined response, the secured password is revealed. To the uninformed, the system would be perceived as losing power or about to crash, causing the intruder to cease his or her nefarious mission or risk detection. The protection system assumed that the interloper had compromised the voice recognition transfer system, not an unwarranted assumption, as George had done it with reactive ease on 4 or 5 test systems created specifically for that purpose. But there was another problem. George has his surreptitious system patented and had it installed only on his personal computer system at his home, in his mobile office, and in Nina, his office computer communication system. Somehow, Bob Branson had accessed his system and he used GIDS for his own personal program. But how, and more importantly, why? What is so important that it needs to be protected to this extent? Certainly not the fictional musings of a would-be Hemingway. This also had to mean that Branson had penetrated Nina without consent. Once curious, now furious, George concluded. But didn't Bob know that a curious George would recognize his own system? Of course. Why would he? The conclusion was too simple. Branson had assumed that George would change the password to one of his own, thereby sealing forever the circuitous roads with the SA street signs. But he didn't. Something or maybe someone told George not to change the password, and he didn't. Yes, those feelings again.